to present. Well, I'm just going to bring him in. It's going to be a whole lot easier to do it this way, Jeff.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, right. Having known you for some time, having had the privilege of seeing all the receipts, all the paperwork, the documents, the legal documents. I mean, it's an overwhelming amount of what you have. And I'm just going to say you come with the receipts, and it's probably going to be best for me to let you explain who you are.
Well, Mark, I want to tell you, you're the only guy, and I won't say, but we sent a, let's just say, federal courier to Mark with the actual documentation. This documentation is on file with the Supreme Court of the Philippines, Supreme Court of the United States. It's on file but not signed in The Hague because I refuse to. That's another story. And it's also on file with the U.S. Sovereigns, U.S. Treasury, and has been authenticated. And to that end, Elizabeth Rodriguez Ruiz, your 15 minutes of fame is up. My name's Jeff Rum, and I am the asset manager of the Rodriguez estate, and it is authenticated. We have run your name through the government. We've run your name through the Philippines government. We've also run it through our own estate. And maybe that's your name, but for a woman that's been in the United States that long, you have a heavy accent. And why are you asking Wolverine, of all people? I have to have projects, right? Isn't that right? I'm quoting you out of your script. But in either case, I'm the asset manager. Over the years, it's really frustrating for us. This is why I've come forward. It's so frustrating that so many people along the way have claimed to be heir to the throne, asset manager of the estate, the only one. Of course, all of them claim they're all the only one. The one true and only. I mean, who names themselves the chosen ones? Please. Anyhow, we're just people trying to do the right thing. And I even met myself on the phone one year. Somebody called me telling me they were me. And they were very good. But it's really frustrating how much nonsense is out there. I will run it through for you real quick. But go ahead, Mark.
Okay. I'm right here. I just want to make certain that you're and one. I know what you've been through and the persecution and now you're coming out public and live. Yeah, some point you got to stop living in fear, and you just got to put it out there and go with it. You got to force things to happen.
And that's why I'm here, bud. And I'm only on your show. I don't do many others, but I'll do yours. And you're the only guy that has that. Well, I hope you destroyed it or gave it back to the courier, but had that authenticated paperwork.
Yeah. Security is important. Leave nothing on digital. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, we've never put that paperwork on the internet. We don't use the internet for that.
And I want it.
That level. Okay, let me run back real quick and see if I can. I mean, I don't want to go all the way back to King Solomon in the 1500s, although we can. That might be a better show on another time. But let's real quick run through it. In the 2000s, Mr. Rodriguez had put his foot down, early 2000s, and was fed up for quite some time and wanted his money back. The Rodriguez estate has 934 asset management accounts around the world in multiple banks around the world, much like the keepers of the King Solomon's treasures. Trying to keep all your eggs in one basket was a dangerous place and a hard place to guard it. So the idea was to keep it safe by separating it up amongst the kingdoms, which is what King Solomon did, and that's what the Rodriguez estate did. So we've got the asset management accounts, we have the account numbers, the authorization codes, hell, we have the letters from MacArthur. Mr. Rodriguez got fed up with the game, and he wanted his money back. And here's how it all started. He went beating on the door of UBS, Bank of England, and Bank of China, and a bunch of people that didn't want to give him hundreds of quadrillions of dollars back. So they killed him instead. That's flat out fact. That happened mid-2000s. In 2007, Florencia Rodriguez, Mr. Rodriguez's wife, she picked up the torch, all upset in the name of Mr. Rodriguez, and went and did the same thing. And rather than give her the money back, she also mysteriously died in a horrible way. November 11th, 2007, Mrs. Rodriguez passed away. Mrs. Rodriguez and Mr. Rodriguez, let's be clear, were murdered. All right? Nobody likes to talk about that, but that's what happened, period. And so they had one remaining heir to the throne, a actual DNA authenticated heir to the throne of the Rodriguez estate. Let's be clear here. Every broker in the world, including Miss Elizabeth Rodriguez Ruiz, calls the Rodriguez estate a trust. There is no such thing. That's broker talk. The first thing that you notice is, boom, they call it a trust. Every single one of them. Yes, I'm the chosen one to the trust. Give me a break. It's not a trust. It's a family estate. And to that end, there was only one heir to the throne left. And if the banks could wipe out that heir to the throne, they would have full access to the Rodriguez estate without any DNA in the way. Dr. Kohler recognized this. Dr. Alan Kohler, who picked up the torch after Mrs. Rodriguez was murdered, the estate asked Dr. Kohler to step in as the asset manager, and the remaining blood heir to the throne, the true one heir to the throne, was kept in. Dr. Kohler rushed him off into the mountains of the Philippines and has kept him in hiding. Many of us in the office have kept him in hiding for many, many years. It's expensive. He's uncomfortable, and it's not easy, but he doesn't want to get killed. So Dr. Kohler steps forward, and in 2008 is when I met Dr. Kohler. He took over the asset management position shortly after Mrs. Rodriguez was murdered. Dr. Kohler, he was a heart surgeon. He was a hell of a guy, and must have saved 1,000 lives in doing surgeries. And he dug into all of this very, very deeply, and he did all the background. He did all the research. He found all the historical details and all the liars. He knew where everybody was buried. And this threatened them. So one day, when I say them, I mean the Illuminati, the cabal, the banks, whoever's holding these 934 asset management accounts, just the big banks, you can guess them all, they would like nothing better than to keep their money, and Dr. Kohler's calling them out on it. So one day he gets to me and he says, Jeff, I'm tired of it. Well, I'll back up and tell you how we met, but that's a story in itself. But anyway, he said, get me on a radio station. This is before your time, Mark. He said, get me on a radio station. Well, maybe not your time. I just didn't know you. And I got to get this out there. I'm going to tell the world about this. I'm going to expose everything to the whole world. And we're going to end all this broker nonsense and all these thieves and liars claiming to be the asset managers, the heirs to the thrones. I mean, it was happening back in, right after Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez died. They were coming out of the woodwork, and they still are today. So I put him on the Land of China radio show, and it went out to millions and millions of people, and then it was replayed to millions of people and resent to millions of people because it was a big broadcast having Dr. Kohler step forward and go public with it all. And Dr. Kohler was murdered. And I can tell you, the last night on Earth I spent with Dr. Kohler on the phone as he passed away or he fell asleep. I'm still not sure. But that's the beginning and the end of it. So when Dr. Kohler passed away, the estate came to me and said, look, Jeff, for the past 8 years, Dr. Kohler was my mentor. And for the past 8 years, you've been doing all the heavy lifting. You've been doing all the meetings. You've been on the phone. You've been doing all the deals. You know everything he knew, which is not true. And we want you to take over as asset manager. And I said, I would do that under the condition that I'm not going to threaten anybody. I'm not beating on UBS's door. I'm not telling Bank of China or Bank of England anything. That's not my job. My job is to make sure that the money out of the estate goes to the Filipino people and humanitarian purposes of the world. Dr. Kohler's purpose in the Philippines, his dream and his project for the Philippines was to bring rail, high-speed rail, and build 100 hospitals throughout the island for free medical for all the people, and I intend to see that happens. And then he had many others. So the money for the Rodriguez estate was intended for the benefit of the Philippines and the United States, and then the humanitarian dollars for the world. And I could get into how Dr. Kohler and I met, Dr. Kohler's last night on Earth, how he's murdered, the Sicarnos, the Marcos. It's your show, Mark. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, that's honestly because of your involvement and the years in it. I don't know how we can possibly cover it all in one sitting.
Nice.
And and I can tell you from Mr. C's experience, I think you would be a whole lot safer if you're on more often than less. Uh,
I I understand that, and I'm just tired. That's why I'm here today. This Elizabeth Rodriguez, I've had it. When does it end? This is silly. So before
uh,
I came here, Mark, I was in touch with the government down there, up here, and the people at my estate. We've got 12 people in an office just outside of Manila, and we ran it through every historical file we could find, and it's fake.
um, I do. I firmly believe that a number of people out there think they have bigger positions than they do.
It's ridiculous.
And that's part of controlling the information. They do that on purpose.
I know.
And it's a sad thing. One, I mean, I have to ask the obvious question because we've considered, or you've considered, coming on and going public for at least a handful of years now. You were worried about your safety.
Yeah, well, the difference between the reason that I haven't been killed, because if they want you, they've got you. I mean, it's out there enough that I had the position, and I just, the difference between Mr. and Mrs. and Dr. Kohler is they're threatening these people. They're threatening these bankers, saying that they want their money back. And I'm not here to do that. I'm no security force. I speak for the Filipino people. I speak for the humanitarian side of the equation. And no matter who they say they are, if they're real and I'm a liar, I'm only saying what they're saying. I want to get the money to the people. I want to get the money to humanity. I want to do humanitarian projects. I want to do greater good for the world. And what banks hold that money, when project funding goes down, I don't really care. That's not my battle. We have enough money in the estate as it is. I'll let you know and the readers know. It's the number 4. I don't know what you call that. And 120 zeros behind it. So I'm not really sure what that number, or was it 140 zeros? And that does not include the 934 asset management accounts spread around the world in these big banks that are in the septillion, decatillions. There's no number for it. We went to just one bank and reviewed the amount of deposits there by the state, and it eclipses the total value of the rest of the bank. And there's 934 of these banks. They don't want to give up that money, and that's what gets these people killed. I'm only here as a management referee for the people. I'm not here to challenge the banks or demand them giving me the money, and that's the difference.
Yeah, paperwork wise, is there anything you would consider releasing? Is there anything safe to release on that at this point? Or is something, I mean, think on it. It's not something you'd have to answer now in any way.
What do you mean, identification paperwork?
Well, I mean, for people, unfortunately in this, we get a lot of great claims from individuals. We rarely get to see like solid anything.
They're smart too.
Yeah.
Some of them are really good. Really good. The guy I met that said he was me, he was awesome. Had my whole rap down. Even sounded like me. It was amazing.
I guess on the positive side, I've known you for a few years, so this makes it easier. I don't have to wonder who you are.
Dude, you're the only one that's got that stuff. I'm not a fan. Was it Wolverine, the one that went on Byington and went, it's done, it's done, it's done, it's done, like 40 times? I mean, you're a professional show, Mark. I appreciate you.
We're going to get there, and most of those people are. They're well-intentioned. They're just, but you know how convoluted this thing is.
Ruined my life, but moving on.
Is it going to be worth it after? I mean, if you could take it back now, you could go back 20 years or whatever and say, yeah, nope, I'm going to pass on that one. You could have your career, your money, your family. You could have everything back.
Jeez, Mark. A lot of people watch. No, I don't think I could go back knowing what I know now. 10 years ago, I'd have said, never mind. Let me have my wife and kids back. Let me have my home, my cars, my friends, my family, and more about my credibility.
Yeah, because they have done a heck of a job trying to obliterate every piece of that for you.
I've been standing on this wall a long time, Mark.
You can't handle the truth. That's like I can picture, the men on the wall. Yeah, do you want to schedule a time to come back? We can do more of a deep dive, give people a chance to digest a lot of this.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you say. I'm here to bring it to the world. It's time. It really is time. I can lend a little convo there. Like what's her name, Elizabeth Rodriguez Figueroa there was saying that they're going to start. Well, no, they have started. Bondholders have been paid. That's confirmed. I know some of them who with disappeared because they found the NDA. They signed the NDA. They got paid. They got smart. They disappeared until the NDA expires or the smoke settles, if you will. Also, large entities, let's say foundations, churches, kind of things, are getting paid, not corporations. There's some action a little bit out of Zurich, but here and there, the smatterings are coming. Also, you see the paymasters tightening up and asking everybody for their information and making sure it's correct. You see the people that we've turned all these currencies in all over, like including Reno, that are asking for all your Harry, we need to tighten this up and we need your projects now, and everybody get their final this and that in. That's going on all over the place. You see the banks change, or all the countries changing currency. I mean, it's no coincidence. We are definitely here, and I expect the Zimbabwe and the first of the dinar that ought to hit next week. Oughta. They'll make a liar out of me because I said this. It's time to make it rain. I wash my car. But next week on the dinar, and probably later in the week, the Zimbabwe, I would think maybe two.
It definitely appears to be that close.
It really does. Rich. I mean, there's a preponderance of evidence that would suggest that, but I have no written proof.
All right. So where did all this wealth come from that's in the Rodriguez estate?
I'll give you the short, sweet 40,000 foot answer because you don't have that much time. It all came from King Solomon's treasures. King Solomon, after he passed away, the treasures were plundered, and the loyal followers of King Solomon went and slaughtered the people that went and found the treasures, and slaughtered and murdered all of the thieves, which was typical in biblical times. They cut off your hand for stealing a grape, so you steal the whole treasures, you die. And after centuries, the followers began to dwindle down, and they began to worry about this giant pool of money sitting in one spot. So they felt that the best security for it would be to divide it up amongst the kingdoms rather than try to have all your eggs in one basket and hope that nobody gets strong enough to beat you and come take it all. Because sooner or later you lose that. The world goes up around you and they come get it. So smart to whoever, they all decided in I have to look at Dr. Kohler's notes, 14 or 1500s, let's divide it up amongst the kingdoms. So France, German, England, Spain, China, Europe, the United States, everybody got big chunks. However, the Spanish got the chunk, as it was bigger than all of the other chunks given to all the other kingdoms combined. And the only thing that we could figure out through Dr. Kohler's research is that the Spanish were very close to the Pope at the time. They were very, very Roman Catholic, and the Pope saw to it that they got a bigger slice of the pie. So, as the centuries went on, the Spanish began to get very nervous because to their east and their north and their south, they were warring with England and France and Germany, and the Huns were coming up from I mean, they were basically surrounded by the enemies at war all the time. So, in the dark of night, they disguised fishing vessels and cargo vessels and junk craft of all time and loaded it with half the world's treasures, and smuggled them to the Philippine Islands that they controlled, hid them in the bunkers and the bodegas, the miles and miles of tunnels, and left them in the charge of the keepers, what we now call the tribes of the mountain people. So next comes along, the Spanish get kicked out, were murdered in the next war, and get beat up by the Japanese. Seeing this coming down the pike, the Filipino people and the Spanish built all these facilities where they make thousands of fake boxes of bonds and currency and all kinds of things, which they littered all over the island, so that when the Japanese finally break through and they went and they found all the easy pickings, they were fooled. They thought they were rich and took all the fake stuff and ran away thinking that they'd raped and pillaged the islands. When really, well, the island people, the mountain people, as they call them, were smart and had this stuff buried in caves and bunkers, bodegas, gold, underground. Dr. Kohler showed me a video of a 27-mile long tunnel. He's sitting in a golf cart, and the side walls of the tunnel are 10 feet thick of gold bars stacked 10 feet to the ceiling. And he's filming it as some guy's driving it, and they're just going and going and going. And about every mile or half mile, they come along a 55-gallon drum or an old cask, a barrel, and he'd walk up to it, and the driver would fish his hands through piles of rubies and diamonds and pearls, and then they drop it all, get back in the cart, and go for another few mile ride. 27 miles of this. Now, Doc told me that gold was not to be touched, that it was there to back all the world's currencies. And so far, it hasn't been touched. But I think that Duarte and Trump made a deal, and Trump leased some of it so that we could be Basel III compliant in 2018. But again, they don't let me into those meetings.
Yeah, that entire need to keep things compartmentalized drives me nuts. I get it, but it drives me nuts. All right, somebody asked the question. What I've heard is that it's the Dragon Bonds that have started the process. What have you? I mean, you mentioned.
Trickle of Dragon Bonds, a trickle of Super Pets. Dragon Bonds are running, depending on what you got. They're somewhere around 2G. Super Pets are running 14.3 billion each. Then you get into the golden guns, golden rainbows, golden Bibles, golden crons, and we'll get down the road. But those are probably next on deck. And then I think you'll see farmers bonds and some of the Earth and Rail bonds come a little bit later. A Super Pacelli is actually a Ting Sing Lu Railway bond, 1913, that was then converted to what we now call a Super Pacelli. So they are actually what I call a dirt bond, like a farmer's bond. They are longitude and latitude square miles in the middle of Beijing. They're a multi-billion-dollar block. But yeah, they started out with some dragons, some Super Pets, and they're moving on to the gold. But first, bonds, just bonds. So the bond people are being paid, confirmation on that, but in small spatterings way at the top, and it's trickling fast. And then we're going to see the Dragon, Super Pets, and on to the gold. That'll go next, in my opinion. I'm wrong about everything. I'm a wealth of ignorance, really, but that's what I think is going to happen.
No, unfortunately, we all know that one is, as we try to call it from the sidelines, or your case, you're actually in the game, and they've just forgotten to point out what's going on in other parts of the game.
Hey, I think a good guy to bring in on all this, a friend of mine is Malaysian Royals, Alvin Long. Shout out to Alvin, great guy. He wrote the 210-page white paper that is from banking from King Solomon to today, which really cleared it all up for me. And so when I met Dr. Kohler, it was really so. And he's a great guy, Malaysian Royal, authenticated through the estate, authenticated through myself. We did all kinds of digging on him. Sorry, Alvin. And he's the real deal.
Yeah, Alan, come join Jeff for one of these.
Yeah, I lost touch with him a couple of years ago.
Number of people asking about Pingo. Any knowledge?
Can't speak to it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, some folks here. Any of the currencies? I know your side is definitely more on the bond side, and of course the estate manager. A number of people are just going to pepper you with from Zimbabwe to Bolivar, any kind of currency question they can.
Yeah, right. First basket, right? We're looking at the dinar is going to kick off when that goes. That'll kick off the first basket. First basket, dinar, dong, zim. I think rupiah or rupiah. They always say it. Renminbi, which is also the Chinese yuan. I think that's all the first basket. I've just been turned on to sleeper in the crowd is the Bolivar, the 2021 series P17, it's down about $3, so you can buy a fistful of them for nothing, and they should go 1-to-1. Should be about 20 million for $3. Best deal in town.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, Zimbabwe is still running about 120 to 150 a T-note. The Vietnamese dong is still reasonable to buy at 50, 60, $70 a million. And the dinar, the $25,000 notes are getting a little harder to put your hands on because the word's out. I mean, it's go time, so there's a sudden rush at the plate there for some of them. But having some dealers that are out, and we'll let you know when it comes back in, kind of thing. And they haven't let me know yet, so I'm thinking they're starting to shut that down. But yeah, the sleeper in the crowd is now the Bolivar, the Venezuelan Bolivar. I just bought a boatload of them because they were just so cheap. Why not?
Yeah, I think a number of us did the same thing. It's, if you're risk versus reward, it costs very little and has great potential.
Yeah,
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, you mitigate your risk, diversify your portfolio. Little this, little that. So if that one doesn't go and that one does, you didn't miss. Or at least gives you a whole lot of pocket to wait for the others to come around.
Yeah, exactly. And I have heard that. You've got your first basket, and I've heard the rest of them. It's not that they're coming in baskets. They're going as the individual country is prepared. Are you hearing anything similar to that?
No, I'm not. But we hear so much. I get to a point where I'm so overloaded with nonsense. I try not to listen to too much of it. It drives me crazy.
No, it does. And I guess a lot of people are like, my God, why don't you want to? Because it's too much.
It's too much. So is Reno the epicenter of the world, as Elizabeth says? No, I don't think so. Is Temple, Texas? That's what they were going to move it there, remember? And the treasure was going to be in southern Colorado. Oh, you hear so much, you don't really know what to believe. It seems that Zurich seems to jump a little bit before Reno. And I don't know. Yeah. And I noticed Reno, I was number 3 at Reno out there for a while. And after I left, Gary Hale, Gary passed away recently, stage 4 cancer, couldn't stop in time. But Gary was the number 2 man under Admiral Baum, and he was being driven crazy because they started to use Baum on that platform in Reno as a disinformation tool. Everybody ran out there and sat in hotels for days, weeks, and months, and then went home again, and then back again. I mean, it's crazy. The amount of human effort and money that has been thrown away and dashing to a stop sign. It was, So I've lost a lot of. Got to keep your eye on Reno because they have so much. I mean, they say every single day, every day. Money's in the bank and it starts tomorrow. They've said that every single day for a month.
Yeah.
So I think it's.
And then on and off for years. No, it's painful. And I guess the negative is they stay in a constant state of ready.
Yeah.
It's got to be exhausting.
It is. It ruined my life. I can tell you. I've been doing this 22 years there, 21 in August. And I lost my marriage, my home, my friends, my money, my kids, my family. I lost $35 million.
Yeah, the price you pay to be in the epicenter or in the thick of this thing, it's. Yeah, I'm glad folks like you, Mr. C, et cetera, are still in this game. Because most of humanity would have rolled over and the bad guys would have it all.
That's for darn sure. This is easy to fold to. This is a lot of pain and pressure.
Yeah, trust me, I've experienced it.
Well, dude, you're not standing on that wall alone anymore. We're here with you. It's been brutal.
All right. We probably should. Do you want to go ahead and set another time while I've got you here? Do you want to talk offline?
Sure. Anytime, offline, online, record, non-record.